Hello, everyone. Today we're doing something a little bit different. It's my birthday. Today, September 2nd, I'm filming this a little bit ahead of time, but I'm, planning to release it on September 2nd. I am turning 35 years old, which makes me a 1989 baby. I'm not going to be in town. Actually, I'm traveling. My husband's taking me on a little trip to San Diego for my birthday, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different today, and I will be answering a couple of questions that I got through YouTube as well as my Discord channel. And I think that these are always just a great chance to get to know each other a little bit better, right? So let's get into some of those questions. So this is from Discord, and the first question is from Crisscross. Hey, Chris. What kind of music would you like to shoot videos for if I have any preference? I have mentioned this on the channel, and I have mentioned it on Twitch as well, but part of the reason I'm here, I'm a filmmaker. I would love to direct music videos. Like, it's such a large part of why I'm even doing this, and I love music videos so much, and I love deconstructing. I love watching them. Ideally, I'd love to shoot metal videos because I love horror, I love sci-fi, and I feel like there's such a great intersection between those genres and metal, and there's just so many exciting, creative things that you can do with the metal genre. Like, it doesn't even need to be horror. Like, I love experimental stuff as well, and I would love to shoot those more like cinematic kind of videos. And that to me is just really exciting and fun. So, any bands out there, I'm here. I want to work. I'm in LA. And I can work in Europe as well. I'm Dutch, so I do have my European passport. I can work. Okay, and then a question from Tarkus. When you're watching a movie or a show or a music video or whatever in my spare time, are you able to turn off your analytical mind and lose yourself in it? Or are you always thinking from a filmmaker's perspective? It's a really, really great question. And a lot of the time I do still get into that analytical mind space. I am able to turn it off a lot of the time, though, where I'm just there for the story and just like passively taking it in. I will say that if a movie, for example, is bad and I have a hard time focusing on the story because the story is bad, I will get more into that analytical space, I guess, because then you start noticing stuff and what other stuff is not great. For example, I saw Borderlands recently, and that was one of those movies where I just could not focus on the story because there was barely any. And so I was really like in my mind just looking at all the other stuff that was going on, and I don't know. But most of the time, if I'm just casually watching something, I will be able to just switch it off. But I was also a film critic for a long time as well. And I used to own and run my own magazine with a couple hundred writers. And so it's just very much a part of who I am and what I do. It's like looking at this stuff from an analytical perspective. And I actually really enjoy that part too. But for the most part, I can choose to turn it off and just not pay too much attention. But there will be times where I'm like fully watching a movie to actually purposely deconstruct it so that I can learn and understand it better. But yeah. Then from YouTube, I got a couple questions too. So I got a question from Architect B. Hello, Manon. If you would be asked to direct a sequel to one of these classic movie series, which one would be your favorite project? The Mad Max saga, the next part of the story. 2, some movie to continue the story of 7 or 8 millimeter. 3, remake of the first Alien. 4, Batman. 5, movie with a story from the video game Project Zero. Which one would it be? Really fun question. Probably Mad Max or something in the world of 7. Sounds so cool. I love the Mad Max films. I'm a huge fan of dystopian sci-fi and Mad Max in particular. is just amazing. Mad Max Fury Road is one of my all-time favorite films. I think it's very close to perfect. I was a little bit disappointed by Furiosa, I guess. But if I could do something in that universe, oh yeah, sign me up. 7, 8mm, really love those films as well, though I prefer 7. But I think for me, 7 was one of the films that really inspired me to also become a filmmaker. 7, Fight Club, those films. And I love the darkness of that film in particular. It's so grim, but also it's just so well written and so smart. Just, yeah, David Fincher to me is very much one of the greats, you know? So, yeah. I could continue the story of 7 or something in that vein. Like, there was Longlegs that came out recently, which was interestingly also with Nicolas Cage, much like 8mm. And I felt like it was in that sort of same universe, but then it took like a turn to the occult, which for me wasn't entirely necessary. I would love to see a film, another like sort of 7-ish film. Yeah. I don't really love remakes, so I wouldn't remake Alien. I think it's perfect. Batman, not really into Batman. I think that we already have about 50 Batman films and TV shows, and I don't want to add to that. And then Project Zero, I'm not at all familiar with. However, if there would be a video game franchise that I would want to adapt, it would be Portal 2 or Frostpunk. And I've been thinking about how to do either of those for some time. Because I think that both have really interesting lore. And Portal 2, I know that they've been trying to do a Portal 2 film for some time. Apparently J.J. Abrams even wanted to do a Portal film. But it's a hard story to translate to the screen, especially if you're not able to do the games, because that's part of the whole fun. And so it would have to be a linear story about Chell in that space. So I don't know what that would look like, and it's something that I am thinking about, but it's not a priority to say the least. And then from Seth1455, his question is, as you focus on the visual aspects, can you miss the musical side or the meaning of the lyrics? Yes, very, very much so. And sometimes I do miss some of the music or some of the lyrics specifically. And I'm starting to get into the habit of looking up the lyrics afterwards, just so that I sort of tie things together and sort of try to deepen my understanding of a music video. But when I'm watching a music video, I'm really just watching the video, and I do try to listen, but also there's so much going on, and I do really like that first reaction type of analysis where I just like watching and seeing what I'm seeing and just taking it in for the first time. Whereas, I could watch it ahead of time and then just give you a rundown of the facts, but I do really like that first time reaction type of engagement, because then I get my purest reaction to the visuals, and sometimes we get so surprised by some of the stuff that happens. And so that means sometimes that I miss some of the lyrics, but to be fair, especially with metal music, sometimes the lyrics are just really hard to understand to begin with, so you would need to look up the lyrics anyway. And what I love most is when the filmmaker is able to translate the feelings and the vibe and the meaning of a song through the visuals itself. Like, in my opinion, it should be a standalone product. It should be able to be a standalone product in essence. It's like, if you need to hear or understand the lyrics, I much prefer it when the story is able to stand by itself, and that's very hard to do. So to be able to tell a story without text, without dialogue, like, that's already hard, but obviously we can sometimes use the lyrics as a crutch a little bit as well as the filmmakers. So yeah, I do miss it sometimes. Do I care? Not that much. It's just a balance, and I focus on the visuals. That's my thing. What has been my happiest moment during my career? And conversely, what has been your most embarrassing moment during your career? So this is from Daryl WUK. Hey Daryl, also a member of our Discord. That is such a tough question because it's the career of a filmmaker is actually surprisingly it's a roller coaster. So there's very high highs and very low lows, and the lows can take very long because the film industry is like notoriously slow. But ever since COVID, it's been even worse because we've had strikes, we've had, all of the businesses closing, and there's so much happening in the film industry at the moment. So it's very hard. So happiest moments for me would be shadowing on the set of an Amazon TV show, which you can see this thing in the background is from that. Was able to manage a director and a cinematographer on the set of that TV show, which was such a cool experience. Another very happy moment for me was shooting my first short film during COVID, and it went great. Another thing, definitely a happiest moment, is I can't talk about it yet. So we're working on my feature film, and there's some stuff happening in the back end, and I may or may not talk about that on my Patreon at some point, but we still need to keep it under wraps a little bit. But I'm working on this, I've been working on this fantastic feature that I wrote in 2020, and we've been working on it since 2022, and it's been such an interesting process, and people have come aboard that I'm very, 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 very excited about. I wish I could tell you about, but we're not quite there yet. We'll see. But those are some of the parts, sometimes when someone says yes to you in your project, it just, makes you feel less crazy. An embarrassing moment during my career. I don't know. I don't have one singular moment that was embarrassing. I'm just really shy. And that is something that I sort of struggle with sometimes, and I can really overthink my interactions with people and get a little bit embarrassed about that sometimes, when I feel like, oh, maybe I was too much, or maybe mostly it's like, am I too much? So those would be little embarrassing things, but I don't have like one moment that I really embarrass myself or anything. Like I did have like one really unpleasant interaction, and it was a small one, and it does stand out, where I felt really embarrassed, where, and this was way back in the day. This was my first ever set that I was ever on. Back when I was living in Australia, I was helping some people out with their short film, and I was a production assistant. I was just in charge of like little stuff. And there was this guy, I think it was their DP, and I asked him, like, hey, can I help you roll up some of these cables? And so I started to roll up the cables. Obviously, I'd never seen these cables before, and so I started to take them apart. And it turned out that I was unscrewing a part on the cable that shouldn't be unscrewed. And the way that the guy reacted was so crushing, and I felt so embarrassed. And he made me feel so infinitely stupid that I almost was like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, there's sometimes how sets, that set, you guys, it was unpleasant. It was like all the sets you hear people talk about, they awkwardly sexualized me and put me in awkward positions with their lead actor when I had to rap. He was like being kept hostage on a seat on like a chair, and I had to tie his legs, and they like started making sexual comments. Like, that stuff was really embarrassing. It was not fun. So I guess I do have some embarrassing moments, and they were really unpleasant and almost ruined it for me. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it myself. I'll be in charge of a set, and no one's gonna be feeling awful or uncomfortable or just stupid. And that's sort of what I really take onto my own sets is like, hey, I don't know everything. And I'm not going to assume you know everything. So if you don't know something, just ask the fucking question. And I try to do the same. So sometimes I actually make a point of it on set is to talk with as many people as possible and ask them all the questions, even though they may seem stupid. Because that's, in my opinion, the only way we'll learn and the only way that we'll make like a better movie. So I guess that was a longer answer than I expected, but here we are. Another question from Lost Hate. Hello. Favorite movie for cinematic reasons and favorite movie overall. And do I have a favorite music video? These questions are always so hard for me. I don't really have one favorite movie. I don't really have one favorite music video. I do have favorite genres. So I love the dystopian science fiction genre. And I just love science fiction in general. Sci-fi and horror are kind of like my favorite things and always have been. Fantasy as well, but sci-fi is probably like my favorite thing as well as horror. And I don't know, my last name is The Reaper, so I feel like I was sort of meant to be doing horror stuff. I can mention a couple favorites. I do have some favorite directors as well. As I mentioned, Mad Max Fury Road is definitely a favorite. Sorry to Bother You is a favorite. Weirdly, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a favorite. In terms of horror films, like I love Get Out. Some of David Eggers' films in recent years have just been absolutely fantastic. I love psychological horror. The Shining, one of my all-time favorite films. THX 1138 is one of my favorites. Children of Men. Those are some of my favorites. And some of my favorite directors, Darren Aronofsky is a favorite. I love the Wachowskis, The Matrix. I love the films by Alex Garland, most recently Men. And I love his version of Annihilation. They're just really smart movies. I also really, really, really love Ruben Östlund, who is not a genre filmmaker necessarily, but I think his Triangle of Sadness is one of the best satires of rich people that I've seen in a long time. And, The Square, same thing, same themes, actually. He's a really great filmmaker. And another favorite is Park Chan-wook for Old Boy, The Handmaiden, Snowpiercer. For me, just a really interesting approach to filmmaking and storytelling. So I love that. And probably the trailer for The Handmaiden is one of my favorite trailers of all time. And I don't really have a favorite music video, I would say. No. So I'm not gonna pick. Although I guess like one of the ones that I covered recently was for Madonna's Frozen, which was definitely one of the most inspirational ones, that's for sure. Here's another question which is really great. It's 3 questions, so let's go through them. April Abatoy. Sorry if I get your name wrong. What's your favorite creative shot, set, or lighting design you've done or been a part of? I think a highlight, and I may include some footage of this, is from my film Uncontrolled, is threefold, actually. There are 3 shots in that film that I'm really, really proud of. And I'm actually considering maybe doing like a deconstruction of my own short film and sort of tell you about the whole process and everything that we did to make that short. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. But there's a trombone shot or the dolly zoom that we did in that. And that's where you move the camera backwards and zoom at the same time. And you could, like, the background compresses, so it feels like the background is coming forward. That's a shot that was like pioneered by Alfred Hitchcock, and I really, really wanted that like at a pivotal moment in the short. And we did it at the very end of the first of 2 days of shooting. Everyone was absolutely exhausted. We did it like 6 or 7 times, and they had a rough time getting it right. but it turned out great, and I was so proud of that. Another thing is that we have like a couple of moments where our actress is at the door and she's knocking on the door, and we had to make that look more interesting. And our DP, Kate Parker, she came up with a really cool rig for the camera to be like, they rigged it overhead so the camera was looking down, and I love that shot because it was so creative that we had like multiple angles as she was knocking on this door. And there's one that I really love where she gets up from the sofa, she walks back to the door, and we get a close-up of her eye, and she leans in, and like she takes a like ragged breath, and it just sounds weird and it looks weird. And our first AC, Justin, did such a great job on the focus pull there, because even though she leans in, it's perfectly sharp on her eye, and he just did a great job. Absolutely love that shot. So yeah, just that was so much fun. Definitely also some stuff on this Amazon TV show where that was my first time that I was seeing like on set like violence, both in terms of like martial arts fighting as well as like guns. And so learning more and seeing that in person definitely was very enlightening for me, because I'd never done that before and it seemed really intimidating. But if you have the people who are, appropriately skilled in that field, it's really great. And as a director, it doesn't feel quite as intimidating, because you do have, like, these are things that I don't know much about. So it's so nice to have the people there that are able to guide the actors properly as well in that whole process. So that was really, really great. In terms of, I can't talk too much about it as for Amazon, but there were some failures on that TV show as well that were so interesting to be a part of. That quite a few big things went wrong, and they taught me, like, those things happening and me just being there to observe and not have any like stakes in making this TV show myself really allowed me to learn what to do and, what kind of energy to channel in those types of situations when things do go wrong. And so that was just, very enlightening. And in the end, I don't think it turned out better than the plan necessarily, but I don't think that the audience will notice. And that sometimes is like the biggest thing. Are there any sets, shots, lighting ideas that I would like to try one day? So many. So my preference always is my films have very little dialogue in them. It's sort of, even the feature that I'm working on has very little dialogue. So music, for example, is really important in my projects. And I love telling stories without talking too much, because I think that especially when people are alone, people don't talk that much. So how are you telling a story with just visuals? And that's something that I really love and will really want to continue doing. It's like, how do we use lighting to create an emotion? How do we use certain shots to give you to elicit certain emotions in a viewer? And that's something that I'm always thinking about, is how can we use just visuals to translate the emotion that this character or person is feeling? There are definitely some lighting setups that I would love to do, which is like more colorful, more like... Oh, this is another favorite director of mine, Nicholas Winding Refn, a Danish director. He is very creative when it comes to the lighting stuff. He's colorblind, and so it's always been so fascinating to me that he is able to create all these really colorful lighting designs. And that is something that I would love to do, is actually play more. And I haven't really had the chance myself to play more with like tube lights and like really atmospheric lighting of a set, and sort of like go for an unnatural look. Like here, what I have here is like very natural lighting and very, I'm very just natural looking, and I want to play with like darkness and then like a pink light and a blue light on the other side, like those kinds of things. Like I haven't really had that chance yet, and that's something that I would love to do. Yeah, anyway, I think that's it. I don't want to make this too long because I know I can ramble sometimes, but these were great questions. If you have any questions for me that you want me to address, I'm thinking of maybe doing this like once every month. Let me know in the comments below. Lastly, I have a couple of favorites that I wanted to share, like my monthly favorites. I have been watching some really, really great movies. I saw a film set in Belfast called Kneecap, which I really, really thought was very, very great. So well done. It was kind of like Trainspotting in a lot of ways, but in all the best ways. And I saw Cuckoo recently, which was also really excellent. I love Hunter Schafer. She's such a talented actress, very physical in her performance, which I really shone through in this, and was one of the better written teenagers that I'd seen in a long time. So can recommend. So Kneecap and Cuckoo. In terms of games, I'm still playing Baldur's Gate. I painted this. I got a miniature painting. Well, this is not really a miniature. It's like a full size, but it's so cool. And I love this. So Baldur's Gate's still been really enjoyable. I'm playing Reus 2, or Reus, as if you don't speak Dutch. It's a Dutch game. On Steam. It's been really fun too, and I'm playing the new Kingdom Rush. So those are some of the games that I've been playing. I watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Can recommend the TV show. I don't watch many TV shows, but this was really, really good. So yeah, those are some of my faves this month, and let me know what your faves has been this month, or the last month, August. And keep me posted on what's going on with you. And as always, you're very welcome to join us on the Discord. I have a Patreon where you can watch some of the work that I've done in the past that I haven't been able to share for free yet. Yeah, that's it. This was fun. I hope you enjoyed this too. Let me know. All right. See you next time. Peace.